uh, and we are live. So let's see if everything's working properly. I'm so sorry for the delay. We had a couple of technical glitch on Restream, so I'm so excited to have it figured out. So let's get right into it. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you're all having a great week. Whether you're watching this live stream, live or YouTube. So few seconds. I had no idea why I'm hearing myself. Okay, awesome. So I'm back. I'm having trouble with Restream. I didn't see this happening at all. I've been using Restream for a while, but this is the first time I'm experiencing this. So yeah, I hope it's really resolved. So sorry for the whole technical glitch. So I'm so glad to have you all here join me today, and I'm so grateful you're tuning today. And today we have a very great guest with us. And today we're going to talk about Async API powered event feeds. In this live stream, we'll explore why. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I keep hearing myself. Oh my God, I'm really sorry, folks. I'm back, and I hope this has stopped. So I just keep hearing myself for some reason. I have no idea where it is coming from. I think so. I just try to like make some tweaks on Restream. Sorry for the whole glitch. I didn't see this happening. Yeah, so I'm back. So just to recap, thanks you all for joining today, and I'm really sorry about this whole thing happening. It wasn't part of the planning. And I hope, Gary, you're patient enough to, forgive me for this. And yeah, so we have a very good guest with us today. And today we're going to talk about AsyncAPI powered event feeds. In this live stream, we'll explore why standard-based approach is essential, highlighting how AsyncAPI helps design, visualize, and standardize complex event-driven systems, right? And we'll also discuss how tools like Solace Event Portal play a key role in creating a cohesive, manageable architecture, right? Unfortunately, we've got the right person to talk about it with us because he has so much great experience. So let me introduce our guest for today. Our guest for today is Giri Venkatesan. He's a proven software developer, a technology expert. He has led the design and implementation of multiple innovative engineering efforts around product development, data and integration projects, and built a strong team of engineers to provide engineering and professional expertise. His experience of expertise includes strategy, product management, and development go-to strategy and services. He's a technical leader, an expert problem solver, a solution thinker, and Guri currently works as a principal developer advocate for the office of the CTO at Solace. Gary is a lovable person, a delightful person. I'm so grateful I've gotten to know Gary a little bit. And if you will join me, please welcome Gary Van Kettesen to the stream. Hi, Gary. Hi.
Hi Aziz, how are you?
I'm doing good. I really hope you could forgive me for the whole thing
Hey,
that happened.
no, no worries. We know this concept, right? Murphy's Law. It started kicking in from the beginning. Usually it happens when the demo is there, but the whole exercise, blessed by Murphy. We are good.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Gary. So, is there anything we should know about you, Gary? I believe we should know about you before we go into the stream. I mean, I've read a lot. I've read your bio to the audience, but I think there's a lot more I haven't actually, touched about you. Do you mind showing the audience who you are?
Yep, absolutely. Now, would you believe if I say I climb Everest? No, I'm just kidding. On a professional front, I have about a couple of decades of experience, maybe a little bit more. And I started as a programmer, just like everybody. And I was fortunate to start my career in a serious phase of my career after 3 years in broker development. There was a company called Active Software based out of California and Bay Area, which later got acquired by WebMethods, which then moved to Software AG. But the point is, I was part of the small team that built a C++ based broker. So that's where my passion towards integration and this messaging per se started, and spent quite a bit of time, almost 8 to 10 years over there, doing majorly around product development and bit of a building package solutions and so on. And after that, I moved into kind of a check out the world in terms of field, what's happening, and how this whole notion of integration and messaging is changing the world. So I got into a bit of consulting and implementation projects and so on, and slowly expanded my horizon into master data management. Still, it is integration though, right? So worked with Informatica and data quality products, and a tremendous experience. It's just not what you do inside a cubicle producing awesome code that's a starting, but the realization kicks in only when you see how people use it, what kind of impact it has on solving these real world problems. So, in a nutshell, I started with the mom product, which is a message oriented middleware called Broker, and from there, SOA, web services, and now back to square one. That's my favorite domain of integration, especially focusing on the modern technology, what we call as event driven architecture, right? What's motivating me to stick around this domain for a long time? It's about the evolution, right? When we build this integration in the early days, it's between application to application, connecting systems like a database to package application, or process to process and so on. Today, the landscape is dotted with varieties of endpoints. When I say endpoints, meaning we are talking about sensors, connected places, and standards based applications and package applications. And then we have this whole cloud. It's amazing how this landscape has transformed. And it is still integration at the end of the day, right? Adoption and increasing adoption of EDA, we see the integration as event driven integration that brings in this whole notion of loose coupling, asynchronous communication, and independent scaling of your services in a microservices setup. We have already moved on from monolith, but still there is a play for both of them to coexist. These are the fun parts that makes me exciting. And in my role as a principal developer advocate at Solace, I get to meet a lot of customers in the form of conducting workshops or collaborating with them to review their adoption plan and things like that. So it puts me on the cutting edge, educating them on what's happening in this domain, and educating them and enabling them as to what's happening in our own product. And the last bit of a fun part for me is working with open standards, like our own async API, right? I'm always a big fan of standards. Simple reason is that brings order to the chaos. If it's not for the standard, every one of the vendor would be creating their own proprietary notion of everything, starting from documentation to representation to libraries and so on, right? So I've spent quite a bit of time on the web services world. I saw the value, but again, what happened is what happened. It's a lot of mess, but we are over that. But today, we have a wonderful opportunity to bring in asynchronous API and play ball with our traditional systems, which is synchronous world, REST API. And I'm excited. I follow a lot of standards, and I collaborate with a lot of experts from whom I learn a lot, including yourself, right? So that's about me, Aziz. I'm a member of Solace, and Solace is on the cutting edge. Literally, I have an opportunity to present some of the components which I'll be using in this demo to talk about what Solace has been doing as a pioneer in the ADA. Beyond that, we're going to focus on streaming. That's about
Awesome,
me.
Gary. Yeah, but I mean, you've said a lot of wonderful stuff about yourself. The amazing contributions you made in the whole EDA industry. But I mean, I'm really more interested in your life outside technology.
Ah, okay. I'm a half geek and half what do you call fun person, but my fun scope is pretty much limited to music and then going around places. Jog, walk, kind of take it easy, see places. So I love vacationing at least once a year, and I prefer solitude of mountains and so on. And with family time, it's good. But me and my TV, I watch a lot of movies that kicks me into my imaginative world. So pretty much, all the big names, they're all my customers. I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Netflix, Amazon. So I pay them a lot of money. So I enjoyed that part, and I love music. So I'm into varieties of music, world music, EDM, all the way to our own traditional Indian music. I don't play music, but I motivate and work with a lot of youngsters who are good at producing music and guiding them, a bit whatever I can. And I have two daughters. It's always fun. Weekends are always fun. So getting to do the chores that they assign, they work on 5 days to compile a list, and you got to get things done in 2 days. So it's fun.
That is amazing, Gary. Thanks so much for the whole aspect of your non-technical life. It's been fun. I would love to like ask you to start doing some movie recommendation, but we're live. We don't want to like get distracted. So before we get started, my first question is, why is standard-based approach like Async API essential for event-driven architectures?
Fantastic question. That's a foundation. If you remember, EDA is not new. The term might be coined and kind of got acceptance over the past 5 to 7 years, but everything in the world is built as event centric. Just that we didn't call that out as a pattern or call that out as an architecture, right? Even in the message-oriented middleware, we used to use a term called as message. Message is nothing but other form of an event, right? But the approach has changed. The brokers that evolved in the earlier era, they used to be kind of monolithic and heavyweight, doing a lot more than what they need to do, like transformation, translation, and single point failure is the inbuilt problem, right? And scalability is another problem, and all the modern enterprise requirements like high availability, failover, all those things, they were attacked at different levels, at the storage level and then network level. It's a lot of moving parts, and I can tell you the products of that era really suffered, even though they conquered and then laid the baseline for a modern integration platform, but they suffered because of these issues. But what is today we are looking at event driven integration is it's a lightweight, just focus on what you're doing. That is nothing but distributing events that's carrying business sensitive data in real time to anywhere, everywhere, as fast as possible, what we call as a low latency, right? And then second part is we didn't have those kind of requirements before. Today we have sensors emitting millions of bytes of data, transactions that's coming. It's not one sensor, millions of sensors, right? One of the Gartner slide beautifully laid it out. The data loses its value from the moment it comes into existence. If you don't consume it, if you don't derive insight, you already lost the game. So how fast you can move the data to where it matters, that's the key, right? So the event driven by design is meant for that low latency, high volume, high speed messaging. And I think that covers it all from my perspective. Am I missing something, Aziz? Do you see anything
No,
else?
that is a fantastic breakdown of how async APIs is essential to event-driven systems. So before I get all excited and keep asking you more questions, how about we just get started?
Sure. Just to close out on the last point, Async API came into play to create a level playing field, serving both the vendors and the customers. If it's not for Async API, every one of us would have created our own standards, and we know the traditional issue of vendor lock-in. And then lack of standard leads to other issues like documentation, sharing, reuse, and all those things, right? And we don't have to, it's not a reinvention. If you look at the REST architecture world, we have this open API. It evolved over a period of time. Along with that, there are various technologies, opportunities like, design first approach, composability. These are all things that's impactful from an enterprise perspective, right? All these things can be attributed to the first step of being able to document in a standards based approach. That's exactly what async API, which was, I would say, it's a boon. It connects and integrates all players into the level playing field. Customers are happy. They're not going to feel like, I'm stuck with this broker. I'm putting into proprietary standards of somebody. So even if you do have this normalized, standardized approach of getting your things documented, so tomorrow you may have a tool that can move from one broker to another broker. And more than that, it's an ecosystem, right? There's the tool set is amazing in async API. That's my favorite part. Parsers, validators, generators, and then it's open source. There's so many creative minds contributing continuously to the upkeep as well as innovative usage of async API centric tooling, right? Uh, that's what I believe. The EDA plus async API is like best thing that can happen for the modern requirements.
A lot of thoughtful insight out there, Gary. Thank you so much for explaining this like I'm five. So let's just get right into it. I know the
Sure.
audience are all like, "Hey, Gary, come on, what are we doing?" So let's just get excited.
Start the story. Show me
Yeah,
what you
let's get
got.
started. Of course, let's go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No worries. Uh, so, Aziz, we have a bunch of slides that I plan to use it to set the stage in terms of what the demo is going to go about. And in these slides, I will lay out the how things come together. The notion of EDA design and EDA documentation, and then the need for standards and what it offers, and how it opens up opportunity for creating people to build tools, build functionalities. So that's the layout. So I'm going to start with the slide. Is that okay?
Of course.
Sure. I'm going to share the screen. All right. Okay. Uh, you, is it fine? Yeah, that's good.
Awesome.
All right. So, you guys know about me. I am reasonably active on LinkedIn, sharing my thoughts and lessons, as well as I continuously learn from all the people involved in the ADA, async API domain. That's about me. I'm going to go to the key part why we are here. See, async API powers a lot of event-driven requirements. One of the things that I'm going to focus on is event feeds. Right? Event feed is nothing but a construct that has all the necessary information about an event that's publishable with the necessary schemas, the rules, and so on, the endpoints and everything, and just start streaming, right? Three steps to streaming. That's what it is. So the first step is to build your event-driven architecture using Event Portal, right? I'll also introduce what is an event portal. And next thing is get your applications. Basically, it could be asynchronous API or asynchronous, basically event-driven application. Get the representation captured in the format in the specification of async API, right? And from that document, what more can you do? Obviously, the simple thing is put it in your CI/CD, right? That's straightforward. Or use the code generators and all those things nicely. That's straightforward again. But what I'm trying to showcase here is use the async API construct to generate something what I call as a feed, right? Once the feed is generated, it has necessary information about what broker to connect to and what events are available for publishing. And then it also has facility for you to set the data rules, what kind of values you want to see in this payload. So these are all UI driven. There is zero coding. When I kind of walk you through the tool usage, it'll become more clear. And STM feed is a kind of a comprehensive tool to generate an event feed from a async API document and run or execute that feed to stream events to a broker. So that's the three steps to glory. But again, you will see whether it's glory or pain.
Yeah.
There is no coding required. Right. So the motivation comes from this one, right? We're all technology people. Be it a developer, be it an architect. We want to design with precision and test it to perfection. I mean, that's nearly impossible. We all strive for that. And because every enterprise requirement, every enterprise problem is complex by nature, right? And event driven problems are a lot more complex. It's not to be underestimated. So, how do we get there, right? So, let's take a look at some of the key challenges in the EDA era. The first thing is complexity of the asynchronous interaction. All of us have been coding and we know the interaction patterns, IPC to sockets to WebSockets to TCP based communication, basically network style communication all the way to application style communication and so on. But predominantly, they have all been synchronous. You ask for something, I'll give it to you, right? But we never got used to this notion of tell me what you want. I will continue to give it to you. You don't have to keep bothering me. Are we there yet? Do you have anything more? Do you have anything more? None of those things, right? That's a new pattern. That's what makes it asynchronous, right? You ask once, and when it's ready, it'll be delivered to you. So this adds to the complexity, starting from the understanding the mindset of how do we deal with this? There's no immediate feedback, right? From that part all the way to how do you handle these events, right? A request or for example, an event is sent across, but it's not seen by the consumer. So what happened? Did the publisher publish the event, or the consumer lose the event, or something happened in the middle, like a broker lost the event? The handling of events is always a tricky part. Event loss or duplication could be a serious risk in a business context. And third part is, unlike synchronous, which I mentioned already, there is no immediate feedback, right? In a kind of API world, you get a feedback, at least at the HTTP level, 200, 403, you know the endpoint available, not available, and so on. And then you have this notion of application errors. So it's immediate. Maximum what you have to wait for is the timeout period. But in event-driven world, there is no immediacy at all. You sent an event and you forget it. Now, whenever the response is ready, it will come to you. It will be streamed to you. So this is a kind of a mind shift, right? This is a complex problem. And again, we don't have to code our solutions, kind of taking care of these things, every one of us. Rather, that's where the notion of broker comes in. The intermediary that can mediate the interaction between a producer and a consumer, basically in terms of event producer and event consumer, and offers facilities to handle and manage all these complexities. That's where this class of brokers comes into existence. Some brokers might be rudimentary, some brokers might be sophisticated because they offer various quality of service, persistent, guaranteed delivery, right? That's one of the key things that people look for. And then queue-based mechanism to manage this, the what do you call persisted messaging, right? So there's a lot of facilities that broker brings into the play here. So trust a broker to handle these three challenges. But it doesn't mean that there's not many other challenges. There are many, but I'm going to focus on a couple of that matters to our discussion. The first one is when you build such an API, asynchronous API, or an application, how do you share that with other people, right? You cannot keep sharing the code, right? So the era that we are living in, we come from the API world. We say contract. Okay, what is a contract here, right? Or what is the documentation here? Either way you look at it, we need to have a standardized way of capturing information about the asynchronous interaction, right? So the standardization is key. The moment you standardize it, the whole ecosystem can evolve. Code generation is the ultimate goal, right? I also want to call out one thing here. The traditional API world, it's pretty much HTTP is the only protocol, and then get put set. The standard HTTP operations are the style on which you map your application functionality, right? When it comes to code generation, it's relatively easy. You're dealing with only one protocol, and endpoint is just an endpoint, right? But when it comes to event driven, it's a lot more fun. You need the ability to support plethora of protocol, MQTT, Kafka, WebSockets, REST. REST can also be a first-class citizen as a protocol in the EDA world, right? And that means the code generation part could get very tricky. It's not so easy. And then on top of it, we all want our own favorite language, right? The code generation is the ultimate goal, and it is fraught with a lot of complexities. But if you look at async API, pretty good job. There's a template for every possible language that you would end up using, starting from Python to Markdown to a lot of varieties of things, which I'll touch upon a bit later. And the last part is once you build this application after from the scaffolding with business logic, you are ready, you are running it, all these microservices are popped, they are running great, but how do you test them? This is not like a workflow. You call this request, you get a response. Based on the response, you call the next step. It's a controlled aspect, right? Over here, the time asynchrony complicates things. When you publish an event, you don't know when the response is going to come back, right? So the integration testing, and then add to it the performance testing, everything is complex. In order to kind of manage these things, I would use the word manage. It's you need to start with something as a standard, right? That's where the async API comes in by providing you a way to standard document the services and applications, and then being able to share that, being able to reuse that, and then tap into the entire ecosystem to validate, generate code, right? It is still a scaffolding, but still, that's a great leap. All you got to focus on is building the business logic. I'm trying to simplify that, but without that, imagine every one of us will be building our own frameworks, right? So the the template supported by async API is a great facility. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I have one question, Gary.
Yeah.
But how does these, enable?
Um, Aziz? Oops. I think Aziz is having some network issue. He's back. Sorry, we lost you for 30 seconds or
Yeah,
20
I'm so
seconds.
sorry. My network is kind of terrible.
Mhm.
So bear with me. So I was actually asking a question. Am I
Mhm.
audible?
Yeah, you are. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So you've been saying a lot. Am I
Go
audible,
ahead, Aziz.
Gary?
Yes, you are.
Cool. So sorry about that. So I was asking about how does this enhances loose coupling?
Hmm. Interesting. See, the loose coupling is offered to you by the EDA, right? So you have applications or services that act as an event producer or consumer. You don't need to know about each other because there's an intermediary broker. That's what every one of these applications are going to connect to. Basically, your entire landscape is loosely coupled,
Hmm.
right? So of course, you know what the facility that it brings along. You can scale these producers and consumers independently, especially when you have a sudden spike. Obviously, you don't want to be kind of scaling the publisher side; it's already peaking, but you want to scale the consumer side. So independently, you can scale. Going back to the point I made, that's where the broker and the class of brokers that we have comes into picture. Every broker offers facilities, consumer scaling, back pressure handling, and so on, right? With guaranteed delivery. That's the key. So the loose coupling is a natural benefit of event-driven architecture. Architects love it, developers love it, but when it comes to testing or kind of getting a lay of the landscape, it can be tricky. But people can get used to it. It's being adopted very well.
Awesome. That basically answers my question.
Mhm. Yeah, so I will move to my next slide. So basically, in this entire process, we are talking about EDA, right? EDA is not something that you start with a hand coding, right? You got to have this notion of your design thinking hat. If you remember, the domain-driven design is something as a movement, for the past 20 years has been talking about this a lot. how do you attack an enterprise scale problem by creating domain and creating this ubiquitous language, how these applications within the domain communicate, and so on. That's just an example, right? In EDA, the same concept or similar construct can be brought in. Because if you look at the enterprise landscape, you have already a logical segregation, line of business, or focus areas, or maybe a subsidiary parent relationship, or independent companies collaborating with each other. So the point is, there can be a concept of domain, right? Even if you take a core banking, or their payment processing could be a domain, and then loan handling could be a domain, right? Based on the functionality or business scope, you have these domains. Under the domain, whatever the business function offered can be kind of created as services. In our term, they would all be applications. And under each application, now we are talking about the event landscape. Produce events, consume events. What do you mean by that? What are the events that this application can produce? What are the events this application can subscribe to? Now, if you lay it out visually, you have a network graph where applications connected to each other, not in terms of just a line, but in terms of the ability to publish event that's going to be consumed by another application. So I will show this graph. You might have seen it in other tools as well. This entire EDA can be visualized as a network of applications collaborating with each other via pub sub activity on events, and that's your EDA, right? And that's what Event Portal offers. And you don't want to, and you cannot. It's not easy to hand code and get your EDA started. You may end up in building the code, but again, we go back to the same problem. From the code, how do you extract the contract or the design that you're building, right? So we want to document it. You cannot keep going back to the code. There are two ways, right? You build the design and generate the code, or if you have the code, discover the design from the code and create a standard document, right? Either way, async API plays a huge role here, right? So the event portal typically, taps into this concept and bases it on async API. So let me show you justifying what it means, right? The emergence stems from the fact comparable to the API world. In the API world, API gateway is the central component. That's the one that connects the what do you call the clients and providers, exposing how to connect, where to connect, and then imposing runtime rules, right? Throttling, load balancing, caching, and access control, and so on. So that's straightforward. That's our runtime. And then when it comes to design time, API portal came into existence again many years back. But API portal caters the design time requirements, especially around you can design an API without writing a single line of code and define the schema that will go on as a payload, and you are building an application. And you can compose new APIs, and you can document these APIs with the Open API spec. And essentially, what we're looking at is the API portal brought these key features like cataloging your APIs, discovering your APIs in your landscape, sharing, reusing, extending, and last but not least, generate code, right? So this is the motivation. This is the basis on which pretty much the async API standard has evolved. Okay, I'm saying inspired by, but the landscape is different here. Multiple protocols, multiple requirement is more complex, right? So when we come into the EDA part, the event broker is the runtime. That's the one that's going to kind of enable interaction between these publishers and subscribers. There's nothing more to talk about. There are what do you call the key features like guaranteed delivery, ordered delivery, partition scaling, and there's so many other facilities that broker offers. Of course, you can store the event, replay the event, and so on. That's pretty straightforward. Every broker is unique by its own capability. But what was missing for a long time was the ability to design your EDA, just like what you would do in the API portal. That's where the event portal comes into existence. Using event portal, the kind of the landscape that I painted, right? The domain, application, event, and then the schema or the payload schema that's being carried by an event, all those things. Now, that's exactly what Event Portal does, right? With that, now we have a similarity. You can catalog your events, you can discover your events, you can share and reuse events, compose new events from existing ones, and last but not least, generate code. So now we have a RESTful and event-driven architecture as on par, literally covering both design time and runtime capabilities. Right? So Does this make sense? The event portal is a new concept, but again, not so new. It's been around for a few years now, but it makes a huge difference. And in this game, this is where the async API kind of nicely fits in, right? I'm going to talk about this. So here's an example. Um, that makes sense. Any question or comment, Aziz?
No, no questions at the moment. But I mean, what you just shared, what are we looking at? I mean, you just shared a new slide.
Yeah. So this is one example of an EDA design, right? What you're looking at is, going by the icons. What you see here is driver management is an application, passenger app is an application, accounting is an application. But the flow, the interconnection, the interaction between these applications is through an event. In this case, billing app generates customer receipt generated event. That's basically an event that's published by the billing app, and that is subscribed by the passenger app. So every single billing generated for a customer, it gets routed to the passenger app. So this is published and this is subscribed. So like that, in the entire the network that you see here, the interaction is all publish and subscribe of events, publish and subscribe, and the interconnection kind of tells you how the applications work together to solve this bigger problem. It is nothing but I want to have a ride share application where I will be able to accept passenger requests, and then ride start, ride completed, billing generated, get paid, right? So this is what the event portal does, right? So now this is great, but the game is always played by the three key personas, right? An
Mhm.
architect who builds the architecture or the design the architecture, and then developer who builds the code, and then the last one is the data scientist or the equivalents who try to derive value from what you have built, the insights that makes a difference to the business, right? To the bottom line. Now, architect's pretty straightforward. They're going to bring together all the stakeholders because remember, even in a simple ride sharing application, the payment processing would be handled by a different department than the logistics of identifying a driver versus replacing a driver, the CRM, right? So these are departments, if not different applications. So the architect, to start with, is going to collaborate with all the stakeholders, teams, subject matter experts, and potential consumers, and then come up with a design, right? That's the first part. And that design is so self-explanatory, the developers can look at it and start building code. If not, contribute to it by composing new events. Hey, I see a new requirement, right? So maybe we can do this for a different application. So basically, there's a lot of collaboration happening. When you talk about collaboration, there has to be a single centralized unified tool. That's a must. Without which, we'll go back to the old school of doing it in Excel or doing it in a Notion or a Confluence document and sending them across, and everybody makes a change, and you will end up in reading the change log rather than focusing on building your business logic. So the event portal takes care of that part. The last piece is the data scientists, right? Once they have a good understanding of the architecture, now they will be able to propose what more could be done to derive extra mileage, right? Today, you didn't have a insight into what is the most selling product in particular weather condition. That's something these the data scientists will be able to postulate and then kind of influence the design or enhance the design, maybe by combining existing events or maybe proposing new events. I keep talking about event as if that's a standalone unit. It is standalone, but in the real world, you see them as either an application or an
Mhm.
API, right? A single event can never solve the world problem. Bunch of events that need to kind of come together, and applications reacting to it, what makes EDA. Yeah. So this is how the players use the event portal. Now, the most important piece is it's a journey, right? When you
Mm.
say I'm going to build an EDA, you go through various phases: discovery, design, and so on. But I want to call out some things. This can be done in a traditional way, but you want to do it more efficiently and fast. So the faster it's possible with the event portal, thanks to the event reuse and collaboration. That's what it offers. Makes it more efficient thanks to the automated event access. As you create an event, you can set rules who will have access to these events, right? Who will not have access to these events. So some of the sensitive information doesn't kind of spill over or leak out, right? And then more resilient, thanks to the guardrails along the way. Resilient as in being able to test, being able to check on all-time availability, right? The event portal can help you get those things factored in and tested out, right? Obviously, if you take this as a journey, you discover what you have. If you need something new, you build, basically design, and then authorize who will have access to it, and then promote and deploy to environments. When I say environment, no enterprise will take everything to production in one go. It goes through these phases, right? Test, development, production, UAT, and so on. Right? Sometimes even you have parallel systems that's doing the same thing in case of a failover or redundancy and so on. Entire architecture. So the promote and deploy aspect, that's the connection between design time to runtime. Bottom line, what I'm saying is an event portal can also facilitate with a single click. You can take your architecture, deploy it into a runtime broker, especially the resources like queues, subscription, and the access control rules, and so on, right? Because these are designed. You won't code it in your
Mhm.
code. The design would influence what gets coded, what gets captured in the runtime logic. The last part is you want to see everything what's happening in terms of auditability, and it's a continuous process. What's interesting for us is the design phase. When you build something, how do you share? How do you reuse? How do you externalize it? How do you even put it in your CI/CD? Right? If you leave it to the individual vendors, they will all have their own standards. Right? That's where this async API comes in and nicely tells you, hey, if you are an asynchronous application or asynchronous API, use this standard. So I will tell you, I'm a member of Solace. Solace has been an early adopter of ASIC API for many years, right? Our event portal kind of evolved and taps into the full potential of ASIC API. So to that extent, every application that you build in portal, you would be able to download the ASIC API document. That point, it opens up the door for expanded integration. We're not talking about the enterprise integration alone. How do you integrate with other iPaaS like SAP, Boomi, MuleSoft, right? Or how do you even build your own applications? How do you give it to somebody to build a more sophisticated application? Sharing with partners. I'm talking about external parties, right? So
Mm.
you cannot expose everything as part of your network or asset. Rather, you would expose this API specification. So with this async API, if you have an application exported, you can give it to MuleSoft or Boomi. They can import it, and they have the ability to introspect and then find out what are the events that I can publish, what are the responses that I can get. Now they can make it part of their flow. So you're talking about integrating other platforms as well, right? So async API, this is a crucial role that it brings to the EDA world, right? All right. So now let's look at the big picture. I will show you in the event portal also, but I just wanted to call out here. What you're looking at is in the Solace Event Portal, an application by name Order Management. So I'll walk you through this coffee shop, a simple application domain. And in that, I'm looking at the order management. All I want to highlight is here. You see the events. I am setting up the permissions to subscribe to these events. I want to know when an order is completed. I want to know when order could
I'm
not be.
so sorry to cut it short, Gary. Could
Yeah,
you
yeah.
maybe expand your screen a little bit?
Sure, sure.
I think you're in preview mode, so we probably have to like exit that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe yeah. So just view it from here, expand it from here to see. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, this is better actually. I will stick with this one. So if you look at this one, so it's going to be constrained view, but at least it's bigger, right?
Hmm.
So this is the application, order management, and this order management should be able to subscribe to these events because it need to know when order is completed. It need to know when order cannot be fulfilled because out of stock, or when the order preparation is started. Right? These are the events that the application should subscribe to. Obviously, it's a screenshot. It also has a set of events it publishes. Most likely, it will be like a order details. When a new order comes in, it need to take that order details and send it to the kitchen so that they can look into the next steps, inventory check or preparation start, and so on, right? So in this, there are a couple of things I want to call. When you approach this entire thing in an enterprise perspective, one of the things that we need from the get-go is a versionability, right? So today, you don't have certain details in your payload or in your rules. So you created an application. Tomorrow you want to create another version with additional information, right? Anyway, we know that these are loosely coupled, but a change in a schema or event or an application should not mandate you to rebuild this entire producer and consumer application. Rather, have this as a version v1 and create a new version. So build a component that caters to the new version requirements and capabilities. So the versioning is an integral part of your EDA, starting with application, events, and schema. And next thing is, at an enterprise scale, you also want to maintain certain life cycle, right? You don't want anybody to be using a particular event or an application. You can put them in a retired state, so it becomes obsolete, right? Or you want that to be draft. That means you can test with it, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to kind of use it. We don't want you to use it in production. So you say draft. And then you tested it, blessed it, and mark it as released. My point is there's a lot of intricate enterprise fulfilling facilities at this design level. And at this point in time, you pick a version and download Async API. That's one click. You got the entire event-driven interaction that's happening in this application version captured as async API document. All right. So that is good. Now the next step is to what do we do with this one, right? Once you get it as an async API document, obviously the first thing is put it in your CI/CD. You got your version control from an enterprise perspective, for compliance perspective, all those things taken care. And even if you have a custom requirement, it's all should be able to because it's just a document. And then use the CodeGen ecosystem to generate the scaffolding code, right? That's a starting point. Maybe this async API is sufficient for you to directly integrate with the iPaaS as a micro integration, right? So either way, if it comes to custom coding, these are the templates available for you. Let me go to the next slide that has more details. So this is a sample subset of templates that's available in Async API. Given an Async API document, you can get your the scaffolding code just in running one command. Async API generated a bunch of parameters, boom, you got your baseline code. So what I'm going to focus for our demo is Java Spring Cloud Stream template, right? So on that basis, it's time for us to see how the event portal layout of the architecture in terms of terminology or resources, it maps to async API. Because we cannot be kind of introducing new terminology or reinventing something new. Of course, they are different, but it maps kind of identical. For example, in the event portal, when you say application, it is an application in async API. And when you say metadata, that goes in as info. When you say broker configuration, it is server. Topics goes to channels. Events go to messages. These are all the terms we use in event portal, and that's how it maps or appears in async API. So just by looking at this table, I'm pretty sure there is a lot of similarity and a direct mapping ability. That's an advantage being an adopter. So you ask the question, why async API, right? So all these broker vendors, be it event-driven or the traditional iPaaS guy, they all are looking at async API just to benefit from this interaction with EDA world based on standards, right? Um, and then I talked about this demo. I'm going to use a Spring Cloud Stream, right? And why Spring Cloud Stream? It's a framework that came in before all of us, right? At least a few years now, right? And they also evolved a similar capability. The first thing is they wanted to provide an abstraction over all the messaging systems, be it Kafka, Solace, Redis, MQ, and so on. Right? And that abstraction is through binder, and the binder obviously it's configuration driven. So you tell based on the Spring Cloud Streams, the YAML terminology, this is my binder, this is my channel, this is my configuration, the whole nine yards. And because it is Spring, Spring is an ecosystem. It offers so many other things. Today, if you are building microservices, I believe the majority of the people will be using Spring as a choice. I may be wrong there, but Spring is very popular, right? So if you build a Spring Cloud Stream as your event-driven service for the framework, then you can tap into the Spring ecosystem in its entirety. Spring Boot, Spring JPA, Spring
Mm-hmm.
Data, Spring whatever, the new Spring AI. It is all configuration driven and event driven programming is the center of this whole Spring Cloud Stream framework. You can build processors, source, sync. These are all terminologies that we use day in day out in EDA world, right? And it very well aligns with async API. Why do I say that? Let me show you the picture, then you will see. I had a comparison of Event Portal and Async API. Similarly, I kind of put together something for Async API to Spring. Info, that's a metadata, servers to binder configuration, channels to bindings, message to message payload. You see the similarity? So we are not that far. So the journey starts with Event Portal to build your design, download your Async API, and use the Async API templates to generate code of your framework or language choice. Here I'm talking about a Spring Cloud Stream framework. So we got our entire thing going nicely here. Um, I'll pause here. Any questions or comments or anything you want to add to what I've been saying?
This is going really great, Dre. I have a question. I feel so invested right now. So please could just continue.
No worries. Okay. For this live stream, I'm going to use this coffee shop as a use case. The coffee shop is a simple one, right? It has these applications. Hope, let me just make it bigger. So the third-party apps, oops, third-party apps collects the order. It could be a mobile app or a web app, and then places the order with the order management system. The order management system, in turn, routes the order as order detail to the barista station and the kitchen floor. And whenever the order, kitchen floor, of course, goes and checks the inventory, and if it is good, it tells prepare the stock, and everything kind of in terms of real-time update goes to both barista system and the order management system. So the point is, order management system is up to date as to what state your order is in, and barista system is up to date in terms of what's happening all the way from the front end to the back end, right? So it's kind of a just representative example. It's not a perfect. The coffee shop could be more sophisticated. It could be a lot more complex than what you're seeing here, right? So that said, it's about the demo time. Are we ready?
Time to get our hands dirty.
Yes, it is. So just to set the stage, let me also introduce. Okay, I will do this part. Okay, as I mentioned, this is what I wanted to show you, right? The three steps. First one is build your event-driven architecture using Event Portal, download async API, and generate fee. That's what we're going towards, right? So let me start out with this one. So this is the cloud broker. I'm using Solace PubSub Plus broker for this entire
Okay.
demo.
So how do we? How can the audience, get started with this?
Yes, just go to solace.dev and getting started with Docker. You can
Awesome.
download a Docker image and run it on your local machine. That's a software version of the broker. You can run it for ever if you want. And then the next one is the cloud version, right? So this
Okay.
Docker version is for your personal use, and many of the production versions also production usage are possible as long as you host them in an appropriate environment like a private cloud or
Hmm.
whatever, right? So that's a Docker image. That's one version or one form factor. And the next one is cloud. I would highly recommend to use the cloud version. So just by clicking on this, you'll be taken to a page where you register and get a new account. Very simple information. You get access to a cloud broker for 30 days, and all the features are available, right? So
Awesome.
you get event portal and the mission control. Mission control is about runtime, Solace management, and the event portal is the one that we are talking about today.
Yeah.
So like that, even I'm using a trial account. I've used this and I'm logging in. And of course, there's more to it. I talked about Solace.dev. The next question is, once you get the Docker image or cloud, where do you start with? How do you start with, right? So some samples, like, if you're using Java, these are the things that you can do to produce an image or consume an image and so consume an event and so on. There's a lot of aids in terms of code lab, blog, and the samples. Pretty much you can get everything touched upon here. If I'm using Java, how do I do? Get started with Java. This is your API, and
Hmm.
connect to service, learn more. It will take you to the right places where you find additional help, right? So pretty much, on top of it, we also have a community. Just in case if you get stuck, solace.community, join, and all the questions will be answered. It's a learning experience. Participate and contribute. All
Awesome.
right. I'm coming back to the event portal. So you see here, it's a bunch of tools, but our primary focus is a designer, right? Designer is the one that I showed you, right? I have already created this coffee shop order management system, and graphically, it's exactly the same picture that I showed you in the slide as well,
Hmm.
right? So there is a order management application and third party application, new order, order confirmation, and then there's a barista station and kitchen floor inventory system. The interaction is 100% event driven. But in the real world, it could be different. Maybe one of them could be talking APIs. Doesn't matter, right? So taking a pure event driven case, this is how a coffee shop EDA would look like. And we talked about being able to catalog, right?
Hmm.
There's another tool. Just by looking at the availability of available events, for example, I want to build something. Okay, somebody else want to do a stock check. Hey, there is a inventory system stock check event. I don't have to build anything from the scratch. I can reuse this event, right? And of course, event doesn't carry any value of its own. It's in the payload. If it is a payload, what kind of schema should I conform to? Avro schema, JSON schema. You get to specify. This order. It uses JSON schema. It's defined in the application online services. It is, and then of course you can share or not share, right? And reference the events, number of versions, and
So
last
what do
but
you
not
mean
least.
by share? Like what does the share does?
Oh, that's pretty simple. Remember the concept that I talked about? When you build something, you start with an application domain. This could be the
Mm-hmm.
logical unit, could be a line of business, or could be a functional unit, right? Between this, for example, if somebody is building an applications related to finance, right, they would not expose every single event to the outside world. But there is one thing, something like a credit check. That's a harmless one. They have already built a service, takes a certain input, and then they come back to you and then say, nope, credit check passed, credit check failed.
Oh,
So this is where we want to use the reuse. When it comes to reusability, it starts with the event. Do you want to share this event? The moment you share the event outside the domain, you can build an application. For example, I'm like a customer onboarding, right? So CRM application, and in that process, I want to check the credit worthiness, right? So I can use this event and associated service if it is shared. If it is not shared, so that's where you start with the discoverability. If you find this event useful, maybe you can send a request, and request can be approved. So there's also a workflow involved, right? By definition, when you create an event, for example, let me just quickly show you, it is
okay.
automatically approved, right? Version name, edit event details. So this auto
Oh,
approved.
auto approved.
But you can mark certain things as requires approval. So what happens when somebody sees it's not shared, they can request, and then it goes through the evaluation process and so on. Yeah. So this cataloging possibility is simply because you get everything centralized and you can build, design, visualize your EDA in the event portal. Right? This is your cataloging, and then I wouldn't go care about runtime. Event manager is all about the insight into the broker runtime and the KPIs. The next one, right? Operational insight. Now, one of the things that we all care about is event sprawling or event underutilization. If you have the ability to run a discovery on your event driven setup, you would be surprised how many events you have and then what's the usage, right? There will be truckload of events that are created but never used. So that's what we call events. So to know that, you need the ability to discover, right? And then build insight. So if you look at this one, it is not shared is fine, but this is the key. Oh, by the way, we also work with Kafka Broker. That means we can tap into a Kafka Broker and discover events. So believe me, this is a very lame one that I created 2 days back. It's not having so many details, but still, reuse index is zero, non-shared. That's pretty much everything is not shared. The moment I start sharing, the reuse index will go up. So it's one indicator. If I have my reuse index on a high number, that means I am making the best use of event-driven architecture. You know, Not everybody has to build their own services doing the same thing. That's what we want to avoid, right? And total number of events shared, and it can be split between Kafka and Solace events, and most reused events and least reused events. This will give you a hint. If some event is created, that means it has business purpose, and probably it's serving one particular department or a functional area. But why can't we reuse it? So maybe it was, hey, there's a new service we introduced, inventory check, or there's a new service that we introduced, for say banking sector, currency conversion, spot rate conversion, right? It's not having any sensitive information, rather it offers a valuable service that could be utilized across domains. So you start promoting these events. So all those things are possible only when you have it available in a catalog, expose them for discoverability, and follow it up with the metrics that helps the EDA admin to know what more can be done, right? So I'll straight away go back into event portal, right? You saw this one, right? Let's take this third-party application. I'm opening the application. This looks good. I am saying that this application, I'm on version 0.1.0, but if I want, I can add one more version. For example, adding a version is nothing but wait, go here. Uh-huh. So another version, give the details, a description. Basically, remember, async API also has a similar construct. You can have resource level description, resource level version. All those metadata is nicely captured, right? And set the state and manage events. Okay, it's going to bring up all the events that you have defined in your domain, whatever is shared as well as what's you created, and you choose. Okay, I want to build something that I want to know whenever an order is completed. So I want to subscribe to that event. And then I also want to know when an order is placed. Subscribe to this event. And probably, okay, I want to also have a status check, inventory. So I want to publish this. No, not status check. Rather, I will go IS. Where is it? Yeah, status check. I want to publish. So I get back a response whether the stock is available or not. Right. So if this is done, so I got my pub sub control, access control configured on this application. This application version, more specifically, can subscribe to these events. And obviously, when you look at this, it also has a topic, what we call as a channel in ASIC API, right? And I can also see what events this application can publish, right? And once this is not just about it, there's also runtime configuration. I want create a consumer, and I want that consumer, and I want to set up the queue with the subscriptions. All those rules, all those administrative activities can also be made part of the application design, right? Add a consumer, and then I say give it a name and a type of queue, event queue, direct client. So I will not go there. But the point is, once you create a version, it has all the information that's needed. Obviously, let me just quickly show you around the event. Right? I said order confirmation. Okay, publish new order, right? Let's see what the event looks like. I'm going to drill down into an event, and this event, this is the topic, and these are nothing but the what do you call the runtime variables.
Runtime, yeah.
Yeah, right. And this is the schema. I expect the data that's coming across coming through this event to conform to this schema. All right. So you got your application, events, and schema. That's the three levels that pretty much captures your asynchronous construct, right? So I will just go back here, third party application. All right, I'm going to download async API. One click of a button. Let's take it in the JSON, YAML, doesn't matter. I am going to put it in demo.
I mean, can we see what this document looks like in the AsyncAPI Studio?
Yes. All right. It's been a while since I used this, but I'm just going to copy paste this file. Okay. So let's go there. Okay. I don't want to convert. We built it for 3.6 or 2.6. I'm going to
Yeah.
stick with that. So here's how
Uh,
it looks like. All right. operation specific to Solace, destination, item one. These are the metadata from our side. Yeah.
Hmm.
Order confirmation, accept the following messages, and payload. There's a payload. And we don't use the extension at least at this stage. And some example could be here it is. Where is this coming from? I need to check. This is wrong. But anyway, I'll ignore that for now. And then there's a new order. New order, you see the payload
Hmm.
example. And obviously it's derived from the schema that I've specified, right? So when we generate this async API, we account everything that you have specified in your event portal. Permissions, schemas, and other access control that you might have defined, and obviously the broker, what you are pointing it to, right? Yeah. So it is compatible with async APIs.
Async
That's what
API.
the highlight is. Yeah. So we are still working with 2.6. It's going to take some more time for 3.0 adoption, right? We are waiting. All right. So, so I got the schema downloaded, right? So first step, we went through the event portal. We saw how to build an event-driven architecture, and we got introduced to these constructs like application, event, schema, and then build your event-driven application by setting up the pub permission, subscribe permission, and configuring things relevant to the runtime aspect, like a consumer and so on, if you choose to, right? And this is good enough. This is our design, right? So
Hmm. Yeah.
with that, I want to document it. As an architect, you want to capture changes. If there is a change made, obviously you want to know why it was made, on whose behalf. So that means you start with checking this into your CI/CD pipeline, right? So you got your document. You can pretty much automate all those things to the extent. What you see here, we clicked on the UI to download this basic
Hmm.
API, but believe me, there's a REST API available. I believe API. API service. Yeah. So this is a Cloud REST API, right? Let me check. Get the async API. There you go. So you can build your kind of a
Hmm.
automated process for this application every day, every month, or whenever there is a change. Just download this file and then put it in wherever you want, right? So all the things that you can do in terms of managing these EDA resources, there's a REST API available. Application domain version, right? So this is nothing to do with the async API. Async API is like straight into the world. How do you build a runtime aspect of things or sharing? But this is more like if you want to automate the process, you can use these REST APIs, right? So this is the part, and the next one, what I want to do is I have this async API document. Um, let's say, okay, so we are familiar with this code generation tool, right? So I am going to take this async API code generator. Can you see the screen?
Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah. It looks better.
Yeah. So we know the tooling ecosystem. Let's also go in there quickly. See this studio, which you already saw, and there's a bunch
Hmm.
of CLI tools. But programmatically, what I would be more interested in is generator, if I'm building something from the scratch, or parsers, because I have an async API document. I want to parse it, understand what needs to be done, and it doesn't stop there, right? So, um, okay, let me go tools, community. Where do I get to this?
What are
The
you looking for,
templates.
Gary?
Templates.
Templates. Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go to the Async API website, click on the Tools tab.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can click on the tab.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Okay. This is great. Code first. Hmm. No, one second. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. This is what I was looking for.
Oh,
See this? This is async API generator is a command, and once you download that command in whatever way it's convenient to you, homebrew if you're on Mac, or apt-get if you're on Linux, or download the binary, you can generate code for Node.js. Node.js using WebSockets, Java, Java Spring, Java Spring Cloud Stream, Python. So it's pretty exhaustive. If something is not there, I'm pretty sure the community is working on it. Now it's ever expanding template list. I mean, the justification is pretty clear, right? We have language choice that we are comfortable, convenient, and standardized on, and then there's a protocol, right? So all those things need to be factored in. That's why this makes it. I'm going to take a look at this Java Spring Cloud Stream template. If you look at this one, you will see all the functions that are offered and how to use it, the entire usage. Install this as
mm,
a library and run this command, which you know you can look at it whenever you're ready to use this. But it is conforming to the Spring Cloud Stream um characteristics, like utilizing this actual configuration that's runnable, all from the async API specification to a Spring Cloud Stream application, right? So, on that basis, what you see here is the async API generator that's our current tool, and I want to use binder Solace, which is the one that creates a Spring Cloud Stream code. And artifact, this is my artifact ID. This is my I'm building Java, right? Anyway, the group ID,
yeah.
and this is my JSON file, async API file, and this is my template. And I want the output to be in this third-party apps folder. Just by running this, yeah, let's see.
Oof.
Hmm, what's that?
It worked, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to open this scaffolding code. Let's see what happens, right? You can see here the most interesting part for us is the configuration file. From the async API document, it has created a Spring Cloud Stream application. It has, the naming is little verbose, but that's one of the side effects of community tools. You want to build something more generic, right? You cannot make it more specific. So V1, all this information, if you notice, that's coming from the channel name. And we are subscribing to this topic. And when I get it, the destination is this is the subscription that we will be creating when you run the application. And these are the subscription. And in terms of binders, connect to the broker type Solace on this port, uh, the broker name, username, password, and the standard settings, right? And this is runnable right away. But let me show you why it may not do anything meaningful, because it's a scaffolding code. If you look at this, I'm creating a consumer, right? This is a consumer being from Spring Cloud Stream perspective. When it runs, it is going to be invoked every time when an event of what you saw here, right? In the see this?
Yeah.
Uh, So whenever an event comes in on that particular subscription, which is coffee shop order status, by the way, when you see star, it's a wildcard subscription, right? So the Solace Broker supports this hierarchical construct with the what do you call it, the noun, which is a coffee shop order, and the verb, which is status,
Status.
and this is all metadata or properties. One of them could be a version, and ready is something, and the other parameters, right? So when an event matching the subscription comes in, obviously it will be delivered to the Spring Cloud Stream consumer, and that will be processed by this consumer function. It's not doing anything, it simply logs. That's good enough. If you run this and you publish an event, you will see the things. But the whole point is this is the scaffolding code. Now build your business logic here. That's exactly what's called out here, right?
Why? Yeah,
So
exactly.
whatever you want to do it here. I have a sample code that's reasonably completed. Let me just show you. That will help. Oh, by the way, the whatever the code that I'm using it for demonstration here, it's available in um, in the GitHub, so you can
Okay.
pull out.
Can you
Go
share
ahead.
the link on Restream?
Where do I put it in the chat?
Yeah, in the chat on Restream.
Yeah, it's a private chat. Is this a place or
Yeah, awesome.
okay? Cool. So So if you look at this, I've already captured all the resources that I've used to build this Spring Cloud stream. Starting with, for example, this is the overall EDA export from Solace Event Portal, and these are the async API documents that I've used: order management, barista station, third-party application, and the scaffolding code generated from these async API files. Have some steps, simple steps. Do this git clone, run this generator, and just run it. No, you will start seeing these things. So I've already populated the business logic. I mean, it's not rocket science. If I show you my business logic, you will laugh. I'm just doing some decorated printing. See here, when an event like a new order comes in, right? I just print it. All I'm going to do is generate an order ID and publish that as a confirmation. That's one step. And second step is build an order details event and populate all the details that you are extract from the new order and publish it on a different topic. There is nothing but order details. So with this, notice this. There's a publish activity from this application, two publish activity, right? One is on the coffee shop order update, and the other one is coffee shop order details.
Details.
Now, if you look at the design, maybe this is also fine. See, new order comes in, order management receives it. In turn, it publishes an event order confirmation back to the application, and it also publishes order details that goes to barista station and kitchen floor. You notice this? So it does two parts. Whenever a new order comes in, it confirms the order, whether it's accepted or rejected, whatever it is, and then send the order details to other applications. In this case, it's going to be barista station and the kitchen floor. That's exactly what you see as a business logic here, right? So this is what you want to do, right? So like this, if you complete everything, obviously these are all thanks to Spring Cloud Stream. Now the Spring, it generated all the object a bean, and you can build the extended logic. You can take over, customize, and build more serious business requirements, right? And the key point I want to highlight is this is the one, right? This is built from AsyncAPI document. There's a lot of reflection. Obviously, the convention differs. Look at this convention. This is blah 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 blah. Every field is added, but it works, right? And it has the notion of in, out, and so on. And it has the binders. If you look at our AsyncAPI document, let's go there and then see here. Where is it? Did you close it? Yeah,
Yep.
right. Schemas, messages, right, and channels. This is my channel. Operation is published, binding is on which broker, right? And what message, you link it to the message that you are publishing. And if you go in there, order confirmation, and it has all the details and it has the pointers to the schema the event is supposed to carry, right? So all of us are talking about the same construct, just that the representation is different. Over here, the purpose is to serve to bring in kind of a standards approach for EDA brokers to export the async API, asynchronous API, and EDA applications. But over here, in the case of Spring, as long as you have an async API, our binder can produce this scaffolding code, conforming to the Spring Cloud Stream constructs and the rules and framework requirements. Yeah. All right. So can I run the show for Spring Cloud? I already completed this business logic, for example, right?
Hmm.
I am going to I'm in order management. Let me start the order management. It's going to wait for a new order to come in, and then based on that, it's going to publish order details to barista and kitchen floor, and order confirmation back to the third-party application that generated this order. Okay, so I'm just doing a Spring run. By no means this is a
Could you
kind of
could
a
you zoom in your terminal a little bit?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
This
awesome.
is only one of them will be here. Okay, let me just show one at a time. Okay, let me stop here. So you see, it published an order, right? It received the order confirmation. In that order, you had the fields like country, order ID, sorry,
Of
request
course.
ID, source, and order details. But in the order confirmation event, you don't carry all the details. You just carry the key information, right? And this is your payload. But if I look at the order management application, you can see here there's a new order received. No, not this one. Order details. Yeah, new order received. It has all the details. Pickup time is this, total price is this, request ID. It doesn't have an order ID. Now, it first accepts the order and generates an order ID. That's what goes out as a publishing order confirmation. This goes back to the third party app. And it also does something, take the order details and publish it to the other applications which are subscribing to it. In our case, the barista station and kitchen floor, right? Um, I know it's a kind of a log system printer and kind of deal, but
Hmm.
when I show this in a different tool, it'll become more clear. Right? So we have seen the event portal EDA design to async API to Spring Cloud Stream, basically a runtime. But there's a lot of work still, right? What if I've finished my EDA design using event portal and I have an async API? Man, I'm not sure whether I'm going to use Spring or Python. Can I test this? What do I do, right? That's where I want to introduce you to the new kit or tool that we created in Solid.
I think this is my favorite part of this trip, right? I was just really waiting for this part because I mean it's always so fun, and when you're building or designing your event systems, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
you don't want to generate code, right? Sometimes you just
Yes.
want to like check things out, right? Are they working how they're supposed to be working? Am I sending the right messages? I just like simulate things, right? And I think when you mentioned this, I was so excited, and now we're finally here.
Yes. Totally. Um, just give me a
So what is
second.
this tool? What is this tool, Gary?
This is it. It's a simple command line tool that can be used to publish and receive messages from a Solace broker. That's the intent. That's what it started with. So that means without writing a single line of code, parameterize the CLI interface, connect to a broker, create a subscription, and as events comes from the broker, just print them in the console or dump it in a file. That's from the receive perspective. And publish is you want to publish an event. Maybe you already have JSON payload that is basically you're doing a testing. One particular Python message breaks your system. So take the file content and then publish to broker and see what happens on the other side of the application, the consumer side. Or we just want to stream bunch of events, for example. So more can be found. Again, let me put this URL on the stream.
Yeah.
I would highly encourage people to check out this tool. It's handy. What we're looking at is the first part. There is a bigger scheme how this comes in handy, which I will cover towards the next session, in my next continuation. Okay, so here I just want to call out how do you get access to this tool? It's open source. It is built to work with Async API document, and it offers you a facility to publish and subscribe events to a Solace broker, right? And how do you get access? Everything is covered here. If you're on Mac, use Brew. If you're on Linux or a WSL, use this command. If you're using a plain Linux, apt-get. And the last mile, just making sure that the tool works, some guideline. And what does it do? Just look at the command structure. When I say STM, The first four operations are all about messaging. Execute a send command. That means send a message, and receive a message, or you want to simulate a request reply, right? Start the replier, and then start the requester. You can see this round trip ping pong, right? Without writing a line of code. Now, without worrying about the language of choice or the protocol that you want to use. Obviously, you can configure to connect to different protocols using different protocols to the broker. That requires a bit of a configuration. That's where this comes in. You manage your configuration. You can have five brokers. One is dev broker, test broker, production broker, right? You can configure the connectivity information and create a named config. And whenever you're running, just another parameter dash config and specify the file name. So your operation will be pointed towards that particular broker. Make sense? And this is the part about managing the configuration. So far what we talked about is all about just a pub sub request reply messaging, right? And if you want to persist the connection, because every time you cannot be entering the password, so you create a configuration and specify the configuration. But what about the key resources? Like every broker will have a organized or rather stipulated approach of how you create resources. You cannot just randomly say create a queue or create a user. So there are four constructs that are very critical. One is a client profile that talks about what kind of authentication you will be using, username, password, what are you permitted to in terms of connection from, IP whitelisting, and so on. And then ACL profile, that's your permission set. If you are connecting as a user, what are the events that you can publish? What are the events that you can subscribe to, right? And last but not least, the credentials per se. Using some schemes, of course, it has varieties of schemes supported from authentication perspective. For simplicity's sake, let's use the inbuilt basic scheme, username, password, right? And then you want to create a key, queue. Now let me show you. Oh, sign in again. What do I mean by that? Just a second. I mean, I don't want to go too much into the broker, but I just want to say it's not just about the pub sub, but also when you're publishing, you want a guaranteed messaging. Obviously, you need a queue. How are you going to create a queue, right? Instead of going to this manager tool, for example, um, I'm going to, oh my God. Okay, I forgot to create the broker, I think. Okay, anyway, just a quick exercise. Let's go through this one. Um, or I will just
I
show
mean,
you. I just need,
are we doing all of these because we are using the cloud version of Solas?
yes. Oh,
Oh,
you're right. That's a pretty good point. I just wanted to show the cloud version, but as we talked about, right, you have an opportunity to download the Docker image, run it locally. Thanks, Aziz. I was on a different track. You got me back on track. Thank you, because I was moving towards cloud, but there's no need.
yeah.
If you get to a Docker container apps, you see this. I have this broker image created, and I have a Docker process running the broker. So with this said, just by connecting to, I mean, there's a lot of information available. What I pointed to you, right? Solace.dev, getting started. Get started with Docker. If you go in here, it'll walk you through step by step. In fact, it is so. Uh, see the container. Yeah, install Docker, get your broker running. This is the image. This is the command to pull the image
Mm,
and then start the broker, and then um, run the samples. Once you have the broker running, it's a simple one. For example, I want to connect. It is connecting to my local broker. Whenever you're ready, and test it over here itself. No, I don't want to do that. Next steps: go to this host port URL, localhost 8080, and default password is admin. You can connect your local broker, right? And there's a docs.solace.com that has pretty much all the detail. What's getting started? Software broker. Um, just Go here and see if I can do one. Yep, put up this cloud. Just give me a second. I'm trying to locate that thing. There we go. This is what I was looking for.
Awesome.
So try PubSub plus Event Broker. Just a few steps, right? Set up your first event broker. Once you go in there, you will see what to do. Install a software broker or go to a cloud broker. And then some of the basics around EDA. What's a message? What are the constructs, header, properties, body. And then for us, very important thing is a topic, right? The domain,
Mm,
noun, verb, property. It's hierarchical, and this should have a clear reflection of the operation. In the case of APIs, also the endpoints typically give some construct, right? But in event driven, the topic is the key. You cannot say that auto created is my topic. I mean, can you be more elaborate? Yeah, order
mm,
created in the country of say UK, and then in the source of through the source of a third party, a partner or store, and then some category. So any more information available is useful. The reason is, unlike our message oriented middleware, on many other brokers, you do filtering, right? You get it and then you run the filter, see if it's of interest to you. If it is, you proceed. If it's not, you drop. In this process, what happened is the entire network is not optimally utilized. Whether you need it or not, it's sent over the network. It's happening on the
mm,
client side. But over here, the principal approach of Solace is message routing. When we say routing, the kind of filtering that we are talking about is at the topic name. It happens in the broker. When you subscribe, let's say coffee shop order, new from UK and then some other data, you can have a subscription created only for UK, only for USA, or only for coffee new order. So you have a play around what you want to subscribe to. For example, let's say coffee order new V1 mobile California, some numbers, right? So the domain is coffee shop, blah 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 those things. But as I am interested in this, I create a subscription saying I can have one full subscription with a literal value at each level, but it's going to get me only one event. But that's not how it works. But rather, I would want something like this coffee shop order, whether it's new, update, whatever it is, as long as it's of version 1 and an order and from a mobile source in California, I want that event. So your subscription can be using wildcard. What happens now? The broker, every time when an event comes in, picks the topic and then runs through this matching. Only the matching subscriber will be routed with this event. So the kind of filtering or routing happens in the broker. The client is guaranteed to receive only the events they're entitled to receive, right? So that's the key here. Some of the basics here. And then the STM we are talking about, right? Downloading the STM tool. What can you do with that? So there's plenty of information, something that I will be walking you through today. And then a kind of a pub sub request reply, some use cases, how to do this, and and then scaling pattern. For example, this is one of the thing benefits of you asked about loose coupling, right? The scalability is the key. Competing consumers. If I have a queue, I want to have three consumers, right? And I want all of them to be receiving. We are talking about load balancing. So whoever is ready, that consumer will get the next event. It's a round robin fashion. So the events are consumed simultaneously, or see, this is one way to look at it. And the other one is high availability. That means I don't want all the consumers to be active at the same time. There can be one active consumer, and rest of the consumers will be put in a standby mode. Just in case if the consumer goes down, maybe the second one will become the active one. The benefit is, we talked about the challenges, right? Ordered event processing, right? If you have for example, even in a banking system or any other thing, the transactions need to be executed in order. A credit has to be executed before the debit, if that's the order in which it occurred, right? In case if we switch around, you're going to raise alarms. You're going to wake up many departments. Hey, there's $1 million
mm,
debit happening with no funds. Oh, raise an alarm, wake up everybody. So that's where the ordering matters, right? So the business requirement gets reflected on the type of scaling option that you choose. You would not use competing. Next thing you know, these guys would be one guy would be going saying update the debit, and the next guy will say update the credit. It's all mess. Rather, you want to preserve the order, you will go for this one. So at any point in time, only one consumer is active. That means the consumer is going to process events in the same order in which they came into the system. Right. So anyway, please do check out. If you choose to download the Docker image or sign up for a cloud account, this try PubSub Plus Event Broker will walk you through and get you to a logical state where you have a good understanding of both EDA and the whole the Solace PubSub Plus broker. Right. Okay. Now going back to the STM tool. So this is about the manage, the connectivity, client profile. This is what I was going to, yeah. So I'm going to go into broker. You see here, access control. There are two parts to it: client profile, ACL profile, and client username. So, for
Mm.
example, when I say client username, this is what we'll be using to connect to broker. Default, that's great. But the default again maps to a client profile by name default and ACL profile name by default,
Defaults. Yeah.
right? Just a name. You could give it a many meaningful name that's relevant. But if you go to client profile, let's take a look at this default. This controls what this client can do when somebody connects to a broker with that credential, right? Uh, One can send guaranteed messages. Nope, I want to turn it off because guaranteed messaging is a quality of service that may cost resources, or allow for example a shared subscription, connect to a bridge, receive guaranteed messages, and so on. And then if you expand, you have more options, aligning client keep alive, WebSocket related one, and kind of alerts that you want to set up, in terms of monitoring the usage, metering the usage in terms of pub sub activity from the consumer. And the other one is purely access control. That's what's going to make a difference. And you can whitelist the IP, right? This consumer with this credential can connect only from this network segment, not from anywhere. All the way to these are the topics that can be published. Allow all and then add exception, or disallow all and add exception, and you can have wildcards here. All right. So now you're looking at a authentication and authorization scheme working together, mapped onto a event-driven context, right? And at the end of the day, when you connect to a broker, sure, you should be able to publish event, but there is no guarantee that the event will survive in case of what do you call consumer
Mm.
is down or consumer is slow. So that means it's a direct communication, direct connection, right? What if you want a guaranteed one? Then you have to create a queue on the broker, right? This is the queue. You create a queue and specify uh, access type, which I talked about. Exclusive is non-competing, active standby. A non-exclusive is competing consumers. And with that, you also have the facility for partitions. This is for non-exclusive, context-aware, scalable consumer. So we can talk about that in the next opportunity, but you can create 10 logical partitions within the queue, and
Mm.
you can have contextual ordering within each partitions, right? And you specify who's the queue owner and non-owner operations, what the non-owner when it connects to the broker. So basically your settings, and then more than anything, the quota, how much you're allocating to the queue, and oh, sorry, is it, I
Yeah, it's visible.
And then the standard facility is like a DMQ. In case if the message is dropped because it expired or maybe it cannot be delivered to the consumer, where do you want to capture it? It's an optional one. So maybe you designate some other queue as a dead message queue, and priority messaging and TTL expiry at a queue level configuration, and congestion control setting and DR setup. So all these things happens through the manager tool. Obviously, there is also a protocol, SEMP protocol. We say you can use that to build your own admin slash management tool. But when it comes to STM, what we have attempted is we wanted to give you the basic functionality. Create a
Mm.
queue with basic parameters and add subscription to it or delete subscription to it, and create a client profile with certain rules. So bottom line is, without writing a code, you can manage your provisionable resources on the broker and immediately kickstart your PubSub activity. That is the agenda, right? So this is about the STM as a tool. If anybody wanting to see PubSub in action with Solace Broker without writing a line of code, STM is a great way to start. The pages that I walked you through should get you across the finish line, and I will reserve this. This is where the maximum fun comes in before we close out today. A lot more information is there. Sorry, I took up some time to introduce the STM tool, but that's all right. So I'm going to use the STM tool.
Yeah, but
Uh,
before you get started, Gary, I do have a question, right? Because
yeah,
I know
please,
the
please.
STM tool is open source, right? And I think it's relatively new. Do you think there are plans to actually, support other kind of stuff outside Solus?
Very interesting question. It's quite possible, but the source, the intent started with making it easy for Solace users to kind of onboard, conforming to all the things that is standard, rather natural in a EDA world, right? Solace
Mm.
Broker, Async API, PubSub, patterns, and so on. But it is open source, as I said, right? Anybody interested, they are more than welcome to contribute to it to make it probably more features, or maybe working with other brokers. No, pretty open about it. That's one of the reasons we put it out in the open. No, right now it works only with Solace Broker. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm really excited about this one, and I believe probably in the nearest future is gonna have support other kind of brokers, because I think that would be really cool. I mean, when I try it out, it works like really amazing with just using sodas.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think for most use cases, I think it works pretty well.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad you tried, and I'm glad it worked for you and you liked it. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and I also plan on like recording a video using a sync API with STM to see how seamlessly it works. I mean, other people have to try.
Yes, I agree. So going back to this example, right? So I'm going to publish. Okay. Okay. STM, right? I've already STM installed on this machine.
Hmm.
STMV, I'm having the latest version. If it's not, it's going to give you a hint. Hey, there's a new version available. Download. Receive, right? Let's see what help available. There's two versions, right? One is a standard help. We're looking at specifying parameters in terms of where to connect to the broker and what topic you want to create a subscription on, and queue, message mode, how you want to see that printed, and so on. And then there's the advanced mode. This is something that will give you control over various information like connection timeout, connection retry, right? So you start diving into the Solace specific settings. But I'm sure every broker will have a unique kind of settings how the connection is managed for efficiency or performance, right? So these are the things. So we'll not go into this one. We make, at least I make an assignment local machine, and on that you already saw the default. These are all standard port, standard username, password that is available out of the box the moment you have a broker up and running. So when I say STM receive, I'm not giving any parameter, but by default it's to local, right? It connects to local on WebSocket on port 8008, default broker, default username, password, and on the other end I'm going to say STM send, for example, right? And it also subscribes to this topic called, oops, Solace Try Me, right? And when I started a publisher, it publishes to the Solace Try Me. You can see that event appeared here.
So this is just like a kind of test event.
Yes,
Awesome.
test event, test topic. I mean, you don't have to pre-provision anything for a PubSub. The topic is pretty much a fluid entity. You have an event to publish, and you decide what topic it's going to be published on, either programmatically or by design. I mean, that's what we don't want to do. We want to go by these standards like Async API will tell you what is a channel. Your EDA is designed in Event Portal, where you have already defined what is a topic hierarchy for an event, right? This is just a sample, right? So now what I'm going to do is, can you see me? All
Yeah.
right, thanks. I'm going to start a receiver using wildcard on a coffee shop events. I know this is being published by this guy, right? We have this publisher running, right? So I want to tap in and receive. Okay, what's the event name? Coffee shop. Did I make a shop order update? No, I think I got the name incorrect. Let me just go. Let me check the event name quickly. Mhm. Coffee shop order new. Yeah, I have a typo. So I started receiver on this coffee shop, and whenever this third-party application publishes an event, every 5 seconds it does. Is it running? Is it running? Maybe not. I'm going to start again. Yeah.
So what just happened? What are you doing here?
Yeah. I wanted to capture that new order event. All
Okay.
right. So it is coffee shop order update. Oh, so many events were stuck in that. Okay.
Yeah.
So you see that coffee shop order new V1 phone US 510. This is the topic hierarchy. Coffee shop order
Mm.
new version 1, and the source is phone, country is US, and this is your request ID slash order ID, I think. And then you have this payload. There are three items, right? What I'm going to do is take this payload, STM, send um, minus T. This is the topic I want to publish on, and I want to
Okay.
take my input from a command line, stdin. I'm going to type in, okay?
So what other available options since you're trying to take from command line? Could we take it from
Yes.
somewhere else?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can take it from a
Awesome.
file, or you can just give me a second. I will stop the sender. Stm send dash h. See here, you can
Oh.
specify the message as a parameter, or you
Mm.
can point to a file, or send a default dummy message, which is what we saw when we ran, or send an
Mm.
empty message, or take it from the console, right? So I'm going to send this from console, and in here, I'm going to start a receiver shop order status, because that's what this Spring application is going to publish, right? Order
Mm.
confirmation. Okay, I started this one. I will stop this guy because I don't want the third party Spring app to be creating confusion. I stop. I have only the order management application generated from async API in the Spring framework. It's up and running. It's not going to do anything. It's going to wait for the order, new order, and order status. Let me just check and make sure that it's order status. Yes, order status. So I'm starting a receiver, okay,
Mm.
and I'm taking the payload. Oops, I missed it. Right here. Yep. Enter. Go. It's delivered, and this guy should have received it. Okay, what did I? It's fun. Murphy is in action. Okay, what is this? Content type JSON, wrap util, delivery attempt, payload. Something happened in class cast exception, incompatible with the com coffee shop. Okay. New order. Okay. Why is it different? New order. Customer country items is items. Looks good to me. Options string. What is different here? Hmm. Okay, let me do this. Test.json. Okay. Send file test.json. Maybe it's a command line, it's not taking it correctly. Okay, delivered successfully. And I hope okay, it also runs into same trouble. What is this? Wait to read source message. Okay, new order is received and publishing order confirmation. Yeah, you should have received an event over here. Just okay. Okay, new order goes out, and I'm expecting order confirmation. Okay, looks like some serialization issue with the payload because I copy pasted tool, right? So
Hmm.
it could be an issue. Oh, there's one more coming in. I think the publisher is running. Coffee shop. Oh, there we go. I didn't get the confirmation, but I got the details. Remember, based on our diagram, it publishes on two events, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. See, the complex problem requires complex switching between
Yeah.
screens. That sucks, but for the I empathize
I
with the
mean,
audience whenever
yeah,
they
I mean
want.
that's why it's a live stream, right? So we get to like see things that actually happen behind the scene.
No question. Just a second. Minimize this. Okay. So you see here, when a new order comes in, right? It sends out order confirmation back to the publisher, and then it sends out order details to the kitchen floor and hold on this kitchen floor and the register station. So on that
Mhm.
basis, even though we had a JSON issue with respect to order confirmation, but I keep getting order details because I subscribe to the topic coffee shop order slash greater than. So capture everything that starts with the coffee shop and related to order, right?
Mm.
So this is this simple way of what do you call it? We can see your collaborators, be it a producer or a consumer, operating in their own framework or language using any protocol, but connecting to the same broker, engaged in an event-driven interaction, publish, subscribe. You can also include request reply whenever there's a use case that demands it. But this STM tool can tap in sort of wiretapping. I want to see what is being published. Simply just start a receiver, right? And you will get it. Right. So it's just not topic centric. You can also connect to a queue and get the events from the queue. So to that extent, it's a real productivity tool, but highly recommended not to use in production. But in a testing, development, staging, UAT, all kind of environments, we can simulate, right? So that's about the STM tool and kind of a summit of the async API in action, downloaded from the event portal, generated a Spring Cloud Stream application. We saw the what do you call the third-party system placing an order, and order management system confirming the order, as well as
Mm.
publishing an order detail to internal applications like Barista Station and the kitchen floor. And we inserted nicely the STM into the picture to tap in what's going on with respect to events. And we also spent quite a bit of time talking about what is the role of STM, what it can do as a developer or a tester or even an architect. Sometimes you want to quickly test the event flow, right? That's the most complex one, right? For me at least, when I saw the tool ecosystem in the async API kind of evolve, parser, validator, code generator must have. There's no question. But this piece, I am sure somebody is going to get inspired and build some kind of a streaming tool. Given async API, start streaming events. So now that leads us to the last part of the session. So the third point is all about three steps to event streaming, right? Third point is how can I stream events from an async API? So at this stage, we are going to be working with Event Portal, which we saw. We are going to be connected to
Mm-hmm.
Solace Broker, which is also fine. Now, let me go back to the STM and talk about the third section here. What you see here is event feed, right? So the purpose of event feed is to uh, create a construct based on the definition of your asynchronous API or event-driven application from the async API into something meaningful that you as a user can set up rules. I want to publish this many events, and my published events should have values for these attributes in so and so way. That means we are talking about data generation tool. By all means, we can quickly publish with junk lorem ipsum for string and then 1.5 for all the numbers and so on. But that's not fun. When it comes to testing, you want to make it look as real as possible, right? And it could be random. So, lack of better word, even if it is fake data, we want to have meaningful data conforming to the schema structure, right? You don't want to be dealing with this schema violation, JSON serialization issue, and so on. So that's where this notion of controlled conversion, or rather, the generation of feed from async API comes into picture. So I'm going to go into the STM. So feed is the subcommand. The moment you say feed, it has this many commands underneath it. So now the first one is to preview an async API. Obviously, if we know how async API looks. If it is a wrapped text, it's like you cannot even make sense out of it. You have to put it in the async API Studio and then see these things. But how about presenting a simple human readable view? That's a preview. And then generate is a command that generates a feed, and configure is a command that helps you to set up data generation rules and run. Man, I've got my feed ready. I want to run it. Sure, it's going to have junk value, and then put two configuration steps to set the rules and then run it. So all happens in command line. And this is more like a housekeeping. I want to see the list of event feeds that I have. I want to export this event feed and then send it across to you, for example, right? You may have your own local broker, but I have created a feed for core banking payment processing, right? So without sharing any code, without sharing any of this sensitive information, just a feed export and given to you, import export, and it just doesn't stop there. If we find something meaningful, for example, there are so many domains that has commonality, right? HR management, CRM, order processing, one feed may not, most of the time, if you look at it, the process flow would be identical with minor variations around. So what if I have a feed in terms of employee onboarding process, right? So that as the async API can be generated as a feed, and I want to contribute so people can use it. So the contribute comes into picture. I'll explain what contribute is. You do everything in your local machine. For example, anything and everything what you create. Let's start with the preview, STM preview. So I have a local JSON file, third-party apps. You remember this is an async API file, correct? And preview will give you, oops, what happened? My mistake. All right. Okay, I forgot to specify it as a command line. So I'm going to put it in the, I'm going to give an async API file as input, or you want to preview a local event feed or a community event feed. I'm going to give the file name here. This is my file name. It uses our async API friendly parsers, validators, and then it gives you a perspective saying, hey, there is a domain, there is an application, version number, and the state in which it is in, and these are the events. And then you see the construct of these are the events that can be sent and received. And underneath each event, you have the schema and the schema set. You get it? So the visualization in terms of a graph is one perspective, or going into studio and then traditional documentation view is one perspective. This one is a quick and simple in a command line. I want to see what's of it, but of course, it'll be awful if you have Big async API failure.
Yeah, I got you.
I am not going there. So this is done, right? STM feed, and the next thing is, let's take a look at what we have. When I say list, I mean it's a pretty much interactive flow. Anything that you say, you don't have to specify everything as a parameter. If you know what it is, because every command and subcommand has a set of command line parameter. If you're comfortable and you want to kind of put it in a scriptified approach, you can use those parameters. If not, in an interactive basis, I have local event feeds and community event feeds. At this point, let me tell you what is community event feeds. The point I talked about the feeds.solace, right? Here it is. So feeds.solace.dev hosts all the contributed event feeds. This is from our team, and some could be from our customers. And in the future, anybody who gets excited about the STM and STM feed, and they have a nice async API document, for example, it could be relevant and referenceable for many people. They can contribute by building a feed. So these are the some things called as community feed. They all exist in GitHub. All right. So, for example, you create a feed on your local machine and you contribute. Behind the scene, it gets created as a PR under the event feed side. It gets reviewed for validity, relevance, usefulness, and then approved. The moment it's approved, it appears as a tile here, right? So that means, what do I do here? I can review or view the community feeds available for me to run, and I can also run the feed from here itself. Before we go there, here are the steps to contribute. Design your application in Event Portal, download the AsyncAPI document, and install the STM tool, right? And just do a STM feed generate, con- generate to generate a feed, configure to set the data rules, and run the feed locally to make sure that it is doing what it's doing and contribute. But these are the things that we are going to do now, okay? And see where it goes. So I'm coming back here. I want to look at my feeds list. Sure. You can see here on my local machine, I have one feed by name Coffee Shop Third Party Apps. On the community, I have 7 or 8 feeds. This is exactly what we saw over here, right?
Yeah.
So this is just a list, and then of course, if you want, you can say verbose. It'll give you a bit more information about who's the contributor and what's the repo and what's the domain tags, all those things, right? Aziz, how are we doing? Any questions? I'm just keep on rattling, but hope it is resonating and there's a continuity.
Yeah, we have no questions at the moment, and yeah, it's interesting.
No worries. Okay, so let's do a generate feed, right? STM generate a feed generate. All right. So what do you want to do? Do you want to create a async API feed? Of course, ignore the REST API feed for now. The plan is to support REST APIs as well. You need a feed from them and then publish events by from the API. But we are not talking about that. Async API. And here is my, oops, where is my third party? Okay, here is my file. And friendly name, I'm going to call it test order um, collector. Okay, I don't want to create confusion. It's going to process it, validates it. It's ready. If there's a problem, it would have stopped you in the middle, right? So now description. Let's say coffee shop order collecting app, third party. Just a brief description, and we don't care about the logo. We'll take the default one, and I'm not going to worry about this contributor because it's my local feed. Only when I contribute, I need to bring in all those things. Okay, what domain I'm going to put it in retail domain, and the keyword is coffee shop. Okay, then the feed is created, right? So STM, the hint here is you can run directly, right? So STM feed run this. I'm going to be presented what the feed that you want to run, where is it coming from? Local or community? Local event feed. Okay, it gives you all the event feeds in the local setup. The one that I created is test order collector, and notice it's giving me the events available. In my case, there's only one event. So if it has multiple events, I can choose one of them, many of them, all of them, and so on, right? So it's pretty interactive in the command line itself. I know the event is of this order. So on this side, I'm going to receive, create a wildcard subscription, just in case when the feed starts pumping events, right? I want to make sure that I receive it.
Hmm.
So I select this event, you can see here, right? It starts streaming events. You have control over this in terms of how many messages you want to publish in a second, minute, what's the rate, and so on. But if you notice closely, all are junk values, literally. It's going by the simple rule of number as a number, and string is all junk.
I just check.
This is okay, but could it be better? The answer is yes. So if you notice, we had an async API file, we did an async API feed generate, and immediately we started running. If
Hmm.
this is good enough for you to kickstart your testing application, the performance or whatever, you are ready to go, right? So if you look at this help, you have control over certain things like how many messages you want to stream, what's the interval between each publish, and do you want to give an initial delay, and so on, right? So this is good, but I want to populate something more meaningful, right? I want to set up rules for this. Okay, contribute. Sorry, not contribute. No, I want to then configure. I want to set up rules for the feed. So I want to say this is going to focus on the local feeds. I have two feeds. This is the one that we created. When I open, you can see it is the kind of reflection of async API structure, info, message, schema, servers. In the messages, I know I'm working on new order. And when I go to new order, this is my schema definition or the event definition, and you see the kind of a construct that makes up the event. This is the topic an event will be published on, and the payload is like this: country, pickup time. If you look at this, this is coming from a JSON schema. Today we are supporting only JSON schema. Tomorrow it can be extended to support Avro, Protobuf, whatever else that's of your choice. But the moment you say JSON schema, it has additional information like data type. That's more than enough. Sometimes it can be more elaborate, saying what kind of length restrictions you have, or is it a float, digits, whatever the JSON schema draft 7 up to draft 7 supports, it gets parsed and then presented here. Now, if it is country, for example, pick up time, there's no meaning in putting it as a string. So when you click on the edit, now you have an opportunity to identify and associate a rule. And there are rule groups: string rules, number rules, boolean rules, date rules, and so on, right? For example, I want a time, right? So I'm going to go date rules, and anytime, future, past, recent, soon. How soon? In a day, right? So I set up that, and then total price, special instruction. Special instruction is about the order, right? Extra hot, no sugar. Now, for
Hmm.
example, I'm going to pick a string rule, but I want to have an enumeration, right? Extra sugar, extra hot, just for example, right? Comma separated values, and then you look into the items. I'm just going by a few examples here. Items is an array, so I can have one coffee, one muffin, and something else, right? That's the whole point. So how many order items that I want to support? Let's say I want to have two, and these are all randomized at runtime, right? So quantity, I don't want it to be a float; it should be a number, right? And anywhere from 2 to 3, and I would ignore the product ID and the product name. Yeah, I want to have some enumeration to make it more realistic. Um, Coffee, chai, mocha, right? And customer obviously is a phone number. Yeah, phone number. I want to make it look like phone number. Maybe you have a requirement on your side that phone number validation, processing, and so on. A name. Let's make it look more like a person name, full name. All right. So bottom line is you're setting up the data rules, and it's not just about the payload. Remember what you see as within the flower braces here? These are all variables. The intent is these topic variables is expected to be copied over from the payload. The whole point is when the message passes through the broker doesn't look at the payload because there is no content filtering. The filtering is
Hmm.
a routing based on the topic. So that means the topic cannot be a literal. You have an opportunity to make it dynamic with variables. So I want to see what the order, where the order is coming from. So I promote this source field from the payload into a topic variable. Same thing goes for the country. So if that is the case, why can't I map the attributes? For example, I want that country from the payload mapped to my topic parameter, right? And then I want to have one more thing like a source copied over from the source in the payload, right? For example. So the moment you do that and publish setting, when I run this feed, how many events you want to publish? Zero is infinity. I can say 5, 10. And then what's the interval between seconds? You want something fast, just say 10 seconds or 1 millisecond. It's just a matter of how fast you want the, and then initial delay. It's all in milliseconds. Before doing this, let's take a look at what the data looks like. So you can see here, special instruction picked up correctly from the enumeration, one of the values, and product name get picked up, store ID, and if you also notice, V1, okay, this is not populated properly. So in the mapping, if I, let's do something quickly. Okay, attribute mapping. Anyway, so this is how you configure this. But instead of going through step by step, can I switch around and show you something that's already properly configured? The same JSON, same async API document, but this one, if you look at it, I have populated many meaningful roles. Now, if you look at this one, how does it look? Right?
Yeah.
Mobile from the payload mobile, CM, and that's our country. A 275 is nothing but your store ID. 11214 is your request ID. And I have two items. First one is regular extra hot coffee, and second one is regular less sugar frappuccino. And the customer who ordered is phone number this, and there's a name, there's an email, right? So I've already populated this. Now this is my feed name, right? Async API feed. That's our coffee shop third party. So up to this point, we use this to kind of demonstrate what can be done, but I would switch over to something that's already ready for use. Like I'm going to exit this configure option. Now I'm ready to run. Feed, run, local feed, and I'm going to use this one. So I still have the same thing. You see this? All right. So
Awesome.
that's what,
With more meaningful information.
yes. I'm sorry I'm taking up a lot of time here, but that from my perspective makes it complete. Let's try to rush fast. I believe we have already spent 2 hours. I think
It's
streams are
fun.
like that, I guess. Yeah. Okay. The last piece is about this, right? So you got your feed generated, configured, tested, you ran, and you can export this and then pass as a zip file to somebody, and they can import into their STM setup. The last piece is about contribute feed, contribute. I hope there's no. Okay, I want to contribute this feed. Coffee shop, third party apps. All right. Brief description. Order originator. That's what they right. So I want to keep it on a high level business coffee shop and tags. Purpose. What is this? Keywords. Coffee. Okay, enough. And I want to use the default logo. Contributor name Giri Peterson and contributor handle for attribution, right? So you want to attribute somebody who contributed. So I mean, there will be an email going out, thank you for contribution, or if there's a request for modification and so on. So you put this one, additional information. There's none. Ready to contribute? Yes. Okay. It has to come, right? No such file directory, feeds, coffee shop, third party apps, JSON. Okay. I'm going to ignore this. The point is, if I go to my feed site,
Okay.
if it went through successfully, it would have created a PR request. For example, let me show you something that's existing. Adding a new feed barista station, right? So this was created barista, and then my colleague reviewed it and approved it. So the moment it's approved, it's going to make it to this list. In our case, our async API ambassadors, right? You have this
Mm-hmm.
JSON structure. So the new feed gets added, and the feed definition, the feed details, everything goes in here. These are all in the Git, right? The moment this is complete, when you go to feeds.solace.dev, when you refresh, dynamically it's going to look up the feeds from that Git repo and paint the tiles. All right.
And
So,
then
for
this
example,
this then this page will be updated.
oh, there is no manual update. Automatically, when you refresh, it's going to go to this GitHub that we talked about. Uh,
Mm.
this one, right? It picks up this approved feeds, right? These are the approved feeds: aviation cards, engine, CRM system, fraud detection. That's exactly what you're seeing here. Point aviation cars, CRM, mining, fraud detection, shipping service, core banking, and so on, right? So I mean, this has a fantastic facility like search by keyword and all those things. So for example, let's say point of sale system, right? Now you can run the feed from this site itself. So as usual, you get to specify the connectivity information, URL, VPN, username, password, and so on. So if you have a cloud broker, this will look different. I am connecting again to my local Docker broker. So this endpoint is pretty valid. So connect, we're good, right? And in this stream, there is one event called retail order, right? And you want to control this, meaning message rate, one message per second or 100 message per second if you're doing some performance, start delay, maximum number of events, and so on. So let's start, right? It's publishing, and let's see the payloads. Unfortunately, I don't have a receiver running. That would have been fun. Let me just start it. Stop all, right? So this is my event. So over here you see there's a copy subscription, and I am going to say STM feed receive. No, I want a simple receive. Okay, my receiver is up and running. I'm connecting to local broker. Now let me start the feed. There we go. So I can change the rate, 100 messages per second to 1,000 messages per second, and then interval and so on, right? So what we're looking at is from async API feed, direct async API document, we created a feed, and from the feed using the STM construct, we can stream events. And to make it more look like a real world, we have facility to set up data rules, and there we go. We haven't written a thing as UI, and you don't even have to download anything other than the STM. Once you have a feed that's existing and you like it, you want to use, you want to test, you can work off of the community feeds, or this is even more fun. STM feed run. I want to use the UI, don't want to run from the command line, but I want to see my local feeds. So in the STM feed, run will run a feed, but then run dash UI. You see this? It picks up the local feeds. It presents that on my local setup, I have two feeds: coffee shop third party order, connect, choose stream. Let me make sure that I have a receiver. Okay, I have a receiver up and running. And this time around, let me see if I can pump it up. I want two messages per second. No, 7 messages per second. This is the fastest one that you can imagine, right?
Mm.
So I start. Cool.
Wow.
So as for this limit, I think 20 events, but I will take -1 and start all. Now we are spinning. We are streaming continuously. All right. I'm sorry, Aziz, you gave me full freedom, but I took advantage of it. It's a full
No, no, it's
two
awesome. I mean,
hours.
I'm really, I mean, it could have gone longer. So.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm glad you've already given it a shot and you liked it. But I want our Async API community to kind of give it a shot as well. From an Async API document, we are talking about streaming events. For now, it's pointing to broker Solace, Solace broker, but that's a starting point, right? You can start with Solace and then probably as soon as somebody contributes or makes it working with other brokers, it
Hmm.
can become a ubiquitous generic streaming tool. Yep. So,
Yeah, I think that would be really awesome. I mean, if you're watching this stream later on, or if you live with us, you should check out the STM tool. I already shared a link on YouTube. It's a really amazing tool. You should check it out. I mean, I just can't wait. I mean, I'm still trying this tool out. I mean, I already gave me some spin up. I was having fun. I mean, I was having conversations with Jury before this live stream, and yeah, we've been going back and forth. But yeah, I actually do plan on recording a video about how you can use the sync API, how you can generate feed from the sync API file using the STM tool. So we should probably keep an eye out. Yeah, I mean, if you want to get notified when the video is available, you should probably, turn on the notification and also like, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I mean, that's the least you can do.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There are two places that you can get further deep dive into this topic, as well as more insight into EDA in general,
Hmm.
async API more specific, and in case if you want to know more about Solace as well. One is Solace.community. There's a lot of EDA discussion. There's a lot of async API discussion, and of course our own async API community, right? And second thing is
Hmm.
I'm on LinkedIn, so reach out to me. I believe
Absolutely.
I would be more than happy to help. I take pleasure in helping others. If I don't know, I'm going to co-learn with you together.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna be helping me a lot, Gary. I mean, now you showed me something amazing, and now I just I just can't stop. Like I want to get my hands dirty on it.
Awesome, awesome. Um, all right. I think both of us can take a break, get some brisk
Cool.
walk.
Cool. I mean,
Thanks.
this has been an amazing session, Gary. I mean, from the start to the end, even though we started out having some technical glitch, but it actually is nice. I mean, really, really fascinating stream. But before we actually, round up everything,
Mhm.
what are some wrap up comments or closing remarks you have for the audience?
Right. You know, if there is a standard, try to work with them. Don't create your own standards. You know what I'm talking about. As experienced people, and we may end up in attempting to create something convenient for us. It may be a standard
Hmm.
for your team, but the game is a lot larger than your group, your company.
Hmm.
So the beauty about all these open standards is there's tons of people put their best brain effort into formulating this, right? So it is free, right? Please adopt standards and then choose the right tool. For example, designing an EDA is a very immersive activity. There is always a saying that goes, right? Implementing an EDA is very easy, meaning coding, putting together microservices, that's runtime. But designing an EDA is the most complex thing. If you don't
Hmm.
get the things correct over there, your implementation is going to change by the time you blink, right? It's going to continuously need changes, and it's going to be a mess. So get your EDA design correct. That's where AsyncAPI also plays nicely. So use tools like Event Portal or any other appropriate tool where you can control the evolution, version support, state support, approval request support. Don't look at it as a simple microservice, two microservices talking to each
Yeah.
other. In the event-driven world, it's a lot more complex, right? So use the tools, because one of the success of API is the tooling ecosystem and
Hmm.
standards and adoption and conformance to these standards. I would highly recommend that the people working on the asynchronous domain do the same thing. I believe this can become big. One day we will have a event native thinkers, event native solutions. I
Hmm.
mean, we're not going to be going there tomorrow, but we are building the building blocks: event portal, async API, and simple tools. in the community to more complex tools that we may end up in building, that's going to make a difference. So my parting thoughts is embrace async KPI. There's a lot more we can accomplish together.
Amazing. I mean, with people like you in the industry, I think we're gonna get there sooner than expected.
I agree. I agree.
Awesome. So I hope you all enjoy this stream. As you all know, this stream is part of the series of streams I'm going to be hosting, where we're going to be talking about event-driven APIs and best practices. We're going to be getting our hands dirty, from design to code generation, like you all experienced today. And yeah, and I had Gary with me, and I hope you guys really love Gary because I love Gary. So if you have any question, you can reach out to Gary on LinkedIn. I'm going to share the link to Gary's LinkedIn channel, LinkedIn account on this stream. So if you have any question for Gary or you have any question related to event-driven architecture, you can reach out to Gary and ask Gary. Or if you have a question about AsyncAPI or Solace, Gary is actually the best person. And if you have, comment for me in this live stream, I'm not perfect, so if you have comment for me or feedback, right, feel free to reach out to me in Slack, Amaze, or probably, drop that comments in the YouTube channel or in the comment section, right? I mean, it's open source, right? We do everything open and we're transparent about everything. So yeah, I should be transparent about my constructive feedbacks. Yeah, please make it constructive, right? Don't judge me. So yeah, so that's the end of today's live stream, and I hope you'll have fun, right? Thank you very much, Gary, for doing this live stream. And I do hope to actually see you in another live stream, right? I mean, this doesn't have to be the only one, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I look forward to it. Let's build something more interesting and excite people. Yeah, we'll do that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gary, for honoring the invite to actually join me on today's live stream. And I hope to see you next time. Bye, folks. Bye, Gary.